Hey guys, let's get more news about Steelers, but first, don't forget to subscribe and leave your like. Why Chiefs QB is grateful Steelers once cut him. Kansas City Chiefs practice squad quarterback and 2022 7th-round draft pick Chris Oladokun explained why he's somewhat thankful he was cut by the Pittsburgh Steelers in August of that year. Oladokun likely won't take a meaningful snap for the Chiefs anytime soon, with veteran Carson Wentz on track to serve as Patrick Mahomes' backup this season. Nevertheless, Oladokun sharing how Pittsburgh did right by him 2 summers ago serves as a reminder of why so many within the NFL respect the Steelers as a top-tier organization. Many questioned why the Steelers spent a 7th-round choice on Oladokun shortly after they landed signal caller Kenny Pickett in the first round of that year's draft. After all, Pittsburgh also had free agent signing Mitchell Trubisky and career backup Mason Rudolph on the roster at that time. None of those 4 quarterbacks are with the Steelers this summer. I didn't even get to play in the preseason, Oladokun recalled about his Pittsburgh tenure that lasted only a handful of months. That was tough for me, but at the same time, I understood we had drafted Kenny in the first round. We had 2 good veteran backups as well, so they were trying to figure out that situation. While the Steelers are still trying to figure out their quarterback situation, Oladokun spent the majority of the past 2 campaigns on Kansas City's practice squad. He indicated the Chiefs had their eyes on him even before he was shown the door by the Steelers. Legit, I got cut, and before I even got to my hotel, I was on the phone with the Chiefs, Oladokun said during the podcast. Oladokun likely won't take a meaningful snap for the Chiefs anytime soon, with veteran Carson Wentz on track to serve as Patrick Mahomes' backup this season. Nevertheless, Oladokun sharing how Pittsburgh did right by him 2 summers ago serves as a reminder of why so many within the NFL respect the Steelers as a top-tier organization. Steelers land Christian McCaffrey in redraft Noah Strackbine, July 3, 2024. Pittsburgh. If you take the Pittsburgh Steelers back to the start of the 2024 offseason, wiping everyone's roster clean, who comes away with who? Well, for the black and gold, they land their current quarterback, Russell Wilson, and end up with possibly the best running back/offensive weapon in the NFL. NFL.com's Chad Reuter did a complete redraft of the NFL, wiping everyone's roster clean and starting from scratch, much like a Madden video game. The Steelers started with the 20th pick in the fantasy draft, and welcomed San Francisco 49ers superstar Christian McCaffrey to their roster. The 2023 Offensive Player of the Year has stayed healthy for 2 straight seasons. The all-purpose stud is worthy of a top draft slot, Reuter writes. In the 2nd round, the Steelers stay with a familiar face. After watching all the big-name quarterbacks go off the board, Pittsburgh decides to stick with what they've got, selecting Russell Wilson as their QB1. In the process of adding Wilson, the Steelers pass up on Baker Mayfield and rookie 2nd overall pick Jayden Daniels, who is selected 1 pick later. Who am I to stand in the way of a Steelers team that brought in Wilson this offseason? Head coach Mike Tomlin will work with the veteran to make sure all is copacetic in Pittsburgh, Reuter adds. The Steelers continued their offensive ways in the 3rd round, selecting Detroit Lions lineman Frank Ragnow. Then, in the 4th round, they turned to the defensive side of the football and replaced T.J. Watt with New York Giants star Kayvon Thibodeau. Their impressive selections continue into the 5th round as the team finds their WR1. If Brandon Ayuk isn't going to end up in Pittsburgh in real life, his running mate will make his way to the Steel City in this draft as the Steelers select Deebo Samuel at pick 148. Todd Haley would ask Mike Tomlin how many points Steelers needed, base game plan around his answer. It's most logical to assume an offensive coordinator fixates only on his side of the ball. Scoring as many points as possible, no matter if it's expected to be a cakewalk win or tit-for-tat shootout. But context is everything, and when Todd Haley served as the Pittsburgh Steelers offensive coordinator, the type of game the Steelers were expected to be in devised his game plan. Joining 93.7 The Fan Wednesday afternoon, NFL reporter Aditi Kinkhabwala shared a story of how Haley would confer with Mike Tomlin to see how many points the Steelers needed to score. Based on his answer, Haley would adjust his game plan. Todd Haley told me once that every Friday he used to say to Mike Tomlin, "How many points do we need?" she told the fans Andrew Filipponi and Chris Mueller. And based on that, he would sort of figure out a plan of, where should we sort of be? Run or pass? And if you remember the best Todd Haley years, they could throw the crap out of the ball down Juju Smith-Schuster, that whole slew of group. They could also run the ball really well behind Le'Veon Bell. Essentially, if Tomlin figured the Steelers' defense could keep the points down, Haley would lean into the Steelers' running game. Control the clock and the line of scrimmage even if it meant a more conservative game plan that might only score 20 points instead of 30. If the opposition figured to move the ball at will, Haley would open up the passing game to fight fire with fire. Having enough talent to do either gave Pittsburgh flexibility. In the early portions of the game, Haley would get advice from QB's coach Randy Fichtner, letting him know if the play calls were syncing with the plan. He used to have Randy Fichtner in the box, kind of keep him on track at the end of the first quarter. Where are we run and pass? Where are we run and pass in the second quarter? Just to kind of get a sense. Kinkhabwala made clear that number didn't become a mandate. As game circumstance unfolded, Haley would adjust with whatever was working or needed. Even if the Steelers came into the contest with a plan to pass, if the run game was successful and the offense built up a lead, Bell would close things out. The opposite applied, willing to go pass heavy if required. It's an interesting window into how coaches think. While it might feel like their jobs should be done in a vacuum, be the best offense or defense you can be, context matters. Understanding the opponent and the type of game you're getting into is vital information to build out a game plan. While Haley had his faults and while the strategy could be debated, the results largely shined through. Stacked with talent, the Steelers' best offenses of the last 15 years came from Haley's time as coordinator, a top 10 scoring unit from 2014 to 2017. And Pittsburgh won more often than not, making it a strategy with a track record. Until the playoffs, that is. Steelers WR search growing. The Pittsburgh Steelers have been waiting and watching as other teams try to handle their own wide receiver situations. Meanwhile, they're looking for a door to open, and are believed to be one of the top teams ready to pounce when one does. So, what are they waiting for? Really, it comes down to the other team being ready for a move. Reports claim that Pittsburgh had a trade in place with the San Francisco 49ers during the NFL draft, which nearly resulted in them landing Brandon Ayuk. But now, there's a new update that could be keeping the Steelers away from returning to the likely side of making a move for the All-Pro. Then, there's a new situation emerging. Pittsburgh needs another star wide receiver, and after Justin Jefferson signed a massive deal, the wide receiver market has exploded. Teams can't afford their top pass catcher, but Pittsburgh can. A new name may be on the block for the Steelers. Let's talk about Cam Hayward. The Steelers' defensive captain has reportedly hit a sticking point that could end his time in Pittsburgh. If it comes down to years and not dollars, the two sides might be in an even tougher situation than imagined. The easy answer is that Hayward deserves to finish his career with the Steelers. But when you start trying to negotiate for both sides, it makes less and less sense. And finally, the offensive line. Everyone expects a certain starting five to be on the field come week 1, but what if they're not? The Steelers may need to change their approach to avoid a disastrous start for both their offense and their first-round rookie. Which likely means there's a new look to their starting line. And you fan? What do you think of the situation of Ceedee Lamb? Leave your opinion in the comments.